Okay, hi brothers and sisters. I accidentally shut my camera off. So we're just going to jump right into it. We were reading 2nd Ezra, and we were actually going to jump to chapter 10, I believe. But I'm going to backtrack a little bit because we were reading in Isaiah 37 in the last video, and it was important because it showed us who the glory was that Hezekiah was praying to. And we saw Hezekiah listed with a bunch of other prophets who prayed to the true living God for help. And that was found in chapter 7 of 2nd Ezra. And we found that in verse 109. Yeah, is what it says. 110. And so I meant to read this verse because it brings in the divine's feminine responsibility. And so it's also brought in, as it's carried over, as we saw suggested in this verse. See, I just lost it again. It said, if therefore the righteous have prayed for the ungodly now, when corruption has increased and unrighteousness has multiplied, why will it not be so then as well? So we're pointing to the end right now. Why is it not so at the very end, with wickedness having increased? So we were looking at Isaiah 37 because we were studying Hezekiah. But in Isaiah 37, verse 3, we forgot to read this verse. And they said unto him, Thus saith Hezekiah, this day is a day of trouble, and of rebuke, and of blasphemy, for the children are come to the birth. If we're not talking about the divine feminine here, I don't know what we're talking about. Men do not birth children. And there is not strength to bring forth. Why? Why isn't there the strength to bring the children forth? Because the women have been taught a religious lie by the men of this world who want it to play God. Basically, that's your understanding. We've addressed it over and over. I get tired of doing it. And so when we were reading this chapter, we realized that Sennacherib, king of Assyria, was exalting himself. And then we said that that also linked to King Solomon and what he was doing, and which then shows us exactly these words in Isaiah 14, verse 13. For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. It doesn't say the south. That's taking in Israel, the north kingdom, Israel, and the house in the forest of Lebanon, where these daughters met with Mother God to receive her truth, her law. And then they took it out into the land. And that's how you deliver children. That's how the women were to deliver children. Right? The first Adam is found casting her law down. He does not want her in covenant. And he receives unto himself the spirit of a harlot spirit, that he ends up exalting in his heart so he can exalt himself. And that's what we've been looking at on this channel. And if it don't reason to you, well, go to another channel. You know, where the he that births children, I'm sure, reasons out to you. If that reasons out to you, then there's no hope. Anyway, okay, so we had started reading in chapter 9, and we had went to the benefits, and we had looked at the benefits, and those same benefits we are seeing being given by the Lord, 136, daughter Zion's number. In Psalm 68, that word benefit appeared, okay? Which is ironic that it appears. Sorry, I gotta get comfortable here. I don't feel like doing a video. I don't. Lately I don't feel like doing videos. I'm just struggling to get to the end here. But what I thought was important was that we look at the devices of a wicked shepherd, because they are described over and over and over again in the Old Testament. To which then your brain should say, well, at what time did we overcome these lies? And there's never a time shown in the Bible where we have ever overcome these lies as the righteous daughters of Zion, who was supposed to deliver our children with the truth of the law of Mother God from above. Never has that ever been shown us in the Word. Never. So you should be asking yourself some deep questions. You should be. And you're not. The world ain't. We're at the end, and just like it said here, if therefore the righteous have prayed for the ungodly now, when corruption has increased and unrighteousness has multiplied, why will it not be so then as well? And it is. There's no difference. None at all. Except it has gotten more. There's more wickedness. And so we were looking at the devices. That's where we had turned to chapter 9. And we were reading verse 18. These numbers are so tiny. I could see them back when I was young, but now that I'm getting older. So, for there was a time in this age when I was preparing for those who now exist, before the world was made for them to dwell in, and no one opposed me then, for no one existed. So this was the last part we had read before I accidentally shut the camera off. Sorry. But now those who have been created in this world, which is supplied both with an unfailing table and an inexhaustible pasture, have become corrupt in their ways. And we have, because we have not been looking for the truth. So I considered my world, and behold, it was lost in my earth. That's a daughter Zion. This was her inheritance. This belonged to her. By the daughters belonging to her, who went out in priests the laws of Mother God. By extension, it becomes hers. Her spirit becomes the ruler of the kingdom, the spirit of her covenant, which is mother's covenant from above. And so it's considered hers. Yeah. And it says, Israel will fill the world with her seed in Isaiah 27. So I considered my world, and behold, it was lost in my earth, and behold, it was in peril because of the devices of those who had come into it. All right. So let's look at least one passage. Old Testament speaks of the wicked devices over and over and over again. Now I'm going to leave you, if you want, to go to Zechariah chapter 11 and find the devices there yourself. But we're going to go to Isaiah 32 and we're going to read about these devices and what it really is entailing when God says the wicked devices. And it's talking about how man took control of the law and began to spew lies. And that has never, never changed. Never. The Christians have not gone in and done the hard study required of them. They have continued to read written lies, written theology by men, and not gotten down on their knees to ask the Holy Spirit, you show me the truth, you show me it. And that comes by way of hard study. She's not just going to show it to you, and you not have to actually apply yourself to the text. That's not how it's done. But anyway, we're going to read Isaiah 32, and we're going to start verse 1. We're probably going to read to verse 8, just to give you an idea of what God is considering the devices of a wicked shepherd. I think that's all going to be entailed in here. So, behold, a king shall reign in righteousness, and princes shall rule in judgment. Really? No, it's actually a queen. We've proven that it's going to rule in righteousness. And its principles, the first fruits, shall rule in judgment. Daughter Zion will thresh the nations. In Micah 4, it says they struck the judge upon the cheek. And we know it's referring to the daughter because it says, gather thyself in troops, O daughter of troops. That's a daughter of Zion. And most wants to believe troops are male. Troops, they are female. They're her inheritance. And a man shall be as an hiding place from the wind, and a covert from the tempest, as rivers of water in a dry place. A man? No, the waters come from your wife. We've proven that. And she's identified as the rivers that cut the world with that truth. And then we're shown in Ezekiel 47, 48, that wherever this fresh water, pure water runs, it brings life wherever it flows. So I question the word man there. It's not. And a woman shall be as a hiding place from the wind, and a covert from the tempest, as rivers of water in a dry place, as a shadow of a great rock in a weary land. So she's identified as the rock. Deuteronomy 32 is often the one that I point to, but it's found in many, many other places she is. The rock that they rejected was her, and her water that flowed out of her as the rock of Israel. From thence will come the shepherdess, the stone of Israel. You find that in Joseph's blessings, which is identifying the divine feminine as your birthright holder that comes from the north kingdom, where you see those wicked sons. Solomon was one, the king of Assyria was another, who wanted to exalt themselves on the mount of the north. That's right. So, which was the government of God upon this earth that met in the house of the congregation of the north, identified as the house in the forest of Lebanon. So, and the eyes of them that see shall not be dim, and the ears of them that hear shall hearken. The heart also of the rash shall understand knowledge, and the tongue of the stammers shall be ready to speak plainly. The vile person shall be no more called liberal. Oh, look at that. Christ is in the New Testament, and I can't remember the passage. I believe it's in Colossians, but maybe it's in Corinthians. He says, I brought you liberty. Why then do you live as if you are still subject to the elemental principles of this world, the wicked laws of this world? I brought you freedom by showing the water that washes you, which is God's law, mother's law from above. That's why he's the only begotten son of Israel, right? The vile person shall be no more called liberal, nor the churl said to be bountiful. For the vile person will speak villainy, and his heart will work in iniquity. To practice hypocrisy and to utter error against the Lord. They have done this for many, many years. To make empty the soul of the hungry, and he will cause the drink of the thirsty to fail. That's the water of the wife of the original covenant. And Proverbs 5 states you were to receive these waters from your wife. He chose to exalt a harlot spirit and receive it from those women that Balaam and Balak sent into him. That's where we go back to show us the deeper truth of what was going on. The contamination of the woman's seed that taught God's way upon the world with the law that came from her mouth, identified as the water. Then your spouse, okay, we'll go to this because it's important enough to do it. So I'll put my pen there, and we're going to go to Song of Songs 4:12, and we're going to read it, though we've read it many times. So Song of Songs 4:12, what does it say? A garden enclosed is my sister, my spouse. That's one. That's not many. A spring shut up, a fountain sealed. Thy plants are an orchard of pomegranates with pleasant fruit. That was what Israel, the land of Israel, was called, pleasant. Camphire with spikenard and saffron, calamus and cinnamon, and all trees of frankincense, myrrh, aloes, with all the chief spices. 15. A fountain of gardens, a well of living waters and streams. From where? Lebanon. From Lebanon. Now, for those who don't realize this, and there seems to be a world full of people who don't realize this, let's look up the definition of, number one, we'll look up bride, okay? Let's look up bride. Okay, so, bride, if I get to it, where am I? So, I'll get there. So we'll look up bride. Okay, we're getting there. Bride. A woman newly married or about to be married. It doesn't say women. It says a woman. Singular. Let's look up spouse. Okay? Let's see what spouse says. Yeah. Spouse. Okay. So spouse should read. I should have marked these ahead of time. Okay, so spouse means, I'll get there, I'm sorry. Spouse. Come on, turn. Okay, spouse. Okay, so, spouse. Okay, just about there. If I can find it. Spouse. A married person. Betrothed. Newly married. To promise. To betroth. Marriage. Wedding. Let's look up the word marriage. Okay. M-N-O-P. M-N-O-P. Where is it? M. Okay, so, marriage. Marriage. Okay, we got martial law. Where is it? Okay. So, marriage, the state of being married. The mutual relation of husband and wife. Wedlock. The institution whereby a man and a woman are joined in a special social and legal relationship for the purpose of making a home and raising a family. Now, did you catch what it said? The relation of a husband and wife. It doesn't say a husband and many wives. See, so some of you don't know the definition of marriage or of wedding. You have it way off in your brain, which was taught to you by Baal. That's right. That's who taught you that. So, all right. And we'll read back to Isaiah 32. All right? So it says, and they will cause the drink of the thirsty to fail. And they did. They dried up Zion's water. That's why she becomes a desert land. The name Zion actually links to a dry desert land. That's what it links to. So the instruments also of the churl are evil. He devises wicked devices. That's the law. To destroy the poor with lying words, even when the needy speaketh right. Yeah. But the liberal devises liberal things, and by liberal things shall they stand. So, you can go in. Yeah, and read that. It shows you the wicked devices, right? It's speaking on how he treats the poor. So it's in relation to the law, is what we're looking at. Everything is in relation to the law and how man violated that by refusing to receive it by the wife of his original covenant. That means her spirit. He refused. He refused it, and he wanted to play God. So, we see those devices, and if you go to Zechariah 11, you'll see them there again, and they're mentioned in other places. They took counsel against the nation of Israel to prevent her, to cut her off, these daughters, from being a nation. That's in Psalm 83. They took wicked counsel. That's that web being weaved together by these wicked men, the religious law and laws upon this world, and how they make it look like it's legit. The Bible does that, backs it up. And it's never changed. There's never been a time in our world when it's changed. Never. Otherwise, it would have been spoken upon, and it wasn't. So we're going to look at chapter 10. And the reason why we're going to look at chapter 10 is because of the allegory of the woman that we find there. Now, Ezra was told to go out into the field and to eat nothing but flowers. And there a woman comes to him, and she's weeping. Now, it's got the whole story misconstrued, in my opinion. She's weeping for her daughter that was gave in covenant, in the wedding chambers, and there she was murdered. Well, the spirit of this daughter of Zion was murdered. They did not want her covenant. and her law. And so, in effect, you get the allegory that she was murdered in her wedding chamber. Now, they got it a son, all right? And Ezra chastises this woman and says, how dare you weep for one when we are weeping for many? For Zion, the mother of us all, is in deep grief and great affliction. Which is what this woman was that he met. She was weeping for her. It says her son. It's her daughter she's weeping for. And he says, you weep for one. But we're weeping for the mother of us all. And we are in deep grief and great affliction. So he chastises her. And he doesn't realize that they are actually one and the same that's going on here. Who then ought to mourn the more? She who lost so great a multitude, or you who are grieving for one? But that's how she lost her great multitude. And it's allegorical to the spirit from above, is weeping for her children. And you get that allegory with Rachel. And she's weeping for her daughters. She's not weeping for her son. She's weeping for the loss of her daughters. That this world rejected, cast down, murdered, didn't want nothing to do with them. Did not want their law and covenant. And yet we teach that a man's going to deliver us. And his blood rescues us. It was the blood that made us guilty under the law. And it's man's law that did that, not hers. She says, I required no blood of you. I never did. But if you want to die under that covenant, then go ahead and do so. So he doesn't realize that who then ought to mourn the more? She who lost so great a multitude, or you who are grieving for one? But that's the same. They are one and the same, right? So suddenly she changes, is what she does. And he doesn't realize that he's getting the answer that he's been actually praying to the Lord for all along. Ezra is getting it here. And what is more than all, the seal of Zion? So these daughters are going to be sealed with their mother, the seal of their mother. That's what they're sealed with, which means the spirit of her covenant, right? That's the seal that they're going to carry. For she has now lost the seal of her glory and has been given over into the hands of those that hated her. Therefore shake off your great sadness and lay aside your many sorrows, so that the mighty one may be merciful to you again, and the Most High may give you rest and a relief from your troubles. While I was talking to her, so he was trying to teach her. While I was talking to her, behold, her face suddenly shone exceedingly, and her countenance flashed like lightning. This is Israel. That's who this is. And the allegory is that it's a woman, but she lost her children because they rejected the spirit of Mother God's covenant from above when they actually rejected the daughters on earth that was given covenant to the first Adam. He did not want her. He exalted the harlot in his heart so he could preach himself in his own ways. And that has never changed. Never. None of the saints so far that I've seen has been smart enough to pick their head up. At least those with channels, they still go on with the religious lie instead of going in and digging for the deeper truths. I know those out there who don't have channels. I know I'm getting those who are listening to me. Their number are few, but I think they're picking up on this, just like I am. We're being taught it, I think, together. So her face suddenly shone exceedingly, and her countenance flashed like lightning, so that I was too frightened to approach her, and my heart was terrified, while I was wondering at what this meant. Behold, she suddenly uttered a loud and fearful cry, so that the earth shook at the sound. So I think that's almost akin to the deliverance, the travail of Zion that you see in Micah chapter 4, bringing forth her firstborn, once again, her daughter, which is then akin to Israel, which is then akin to her inheritance, right, that will then yield the spirit of her covenant being put back into play and her dominion being restored back to her. And while I was wondering what this meant, behold, she suddenly uttered a loud and fearful cry, so that the earth shook at the sound. And I looked, and behold, the woman was no longer visible to me. But there was an established city, and a place of huge foundations showed itself. Then I was afraid, and cried with a loud voice, and said, where is the angel Uriel area, actually. So this woman who was weeping for her daughter, who was murdered in her wedding chamber because they refused and rejected the spirit of her covenant, is what you get in Allegory. Her face begins to shine. And then she becomes a great city, the city of Zion once again. So he in effect actually received back what he was praying to God about. All right, and God says here, and behold, you saw her likeness, how she mourned for her daughter. And you began to console her for what had happened. For now the Most High, seeing that you are sincerely grieved and profoundly distressed for her, has shown you the brilliance of her glory and the loveliness of her beauty. And that begins with this 144,000 daughters of Zion that we have taken a look at, holding no guile in their mouth. And they are akin to the firstborn. The first fruits are your chiefs. The beginning of the kingdom, the new kingdom established. God says, you will see my glory in the earth. And it's through these daughters, once again, established, holding no guile on their tongue. Now, we've discussed that in another channel, so I'm not going to do it here. So, that's to go with the last video that I accidentally shut my camera off on. I don't think I've forgotten anything along the way. I just wanted to read those chapters, and because they're just so extensive, I wanted to get to the points. You know, the city's allegorical to a woman because it is a woman. We descend from the daughters of Zion. That's what we are shown. And we're shown it here as well. When the scepter got cast off by the men of Israel, they did not want her for their wife and began to gnash at her and, speak false things against her. And what does it say? And it's one of the, I got it circled here somewhere. Verse 22, Jeremiah 31, verse 22. How long wilt thou go about, O thou backsliding daughter? For the Lord has created a new thing. And she says to the daughter Zion, I will build you again as the stronghold, right? For the Lord hath created a new thing in the earth. A woman shall compass a man. The woman is Israel. That's right. And all of her daughters. And the man is found standing in her rightful birthright, claiming at Zion and the laws of God, which he exalted the harlot when Balaam and Balak sent those women from the surrounding Adamic nations into the men of Israel. And then the men of Israel are saw casting off the daughters in covenant, did not want them, to which mother says, fine, you don't want my scepter, you won't have her. I'll cast her into the lands of the Gentiles. And that's why you see a woman, Israel, surrounding Adam. Now, and it says Israel will fill the world with her seed. And that was a promise to Ephraim, her firstborn, in Isaiah 49. And she says this, because until she can stand up, what does she say? Jeremiah 31, 19. Surely after that I was turned, I repented. And after that I was instructed, I smote upon my thigh. I was ashamed, yea, even confounded, because I did bear the reproach of my youth. This is the daughter. Is Ephraim my dear? They got son, no daughter. That's the firstborn of her womb. We're shown that in the creation account. Woman was the last thing created. As such, she represented the glory and the firstborn of the kingdom that the first Adam did not want. He tore her down. Is Ephraim my dear daughter? Is she a pleasant child? For since I spake against her, I do earnestly remember her still. Therefore my bowels, I think my womb, was troubled and is troubled for her, and I will surely have mercy upon her, saith the Lord. That's what she says of her. And she says, you'll clothe them all on thee as a bride doeth. That's in Isaiah. So we'll go there and then I'll be done. So if we go to Isaiah 49, where she promises her birthright will be enlarged upon the earth, which then links you to the passage, I believe it's in Isaiah 27. She says, Israel's seed will fill the world. That's what it says. And that's akin to what she promises her firstborn of her womb, Ephraim, which is a daughter, in Isaiah 49. Which is then why she comes from Joseph's blessings. All of Joseph's blessings has to do with the divine feminine, not a male. So she says this in verse 18 of Isaiah 49. Lift up thine eyes round about, and behold, all these gather themselves together. So we're shown Ephraim's horn gathering the people. That's your Asaph, the gatherer, your female assembler, who collects the proverbs and sets them in order, and then presents the case. And she's shown presenting it in Isaiah 50 in part. And then as the woman the seed of the woman, or the daughter of woman, Israel, she's seen taken to the Ancient of Days. This is not a son of man. It's not. Not when you do your study. So all these gather themselves together and come to thee. As I live, saith the Lord, thou shalt surely clothe them with them all, clothe thee with them all, as with an ornament, and bind them on thee as a bride doeth. And it's speaking about her firstborn, Ephraim. Can a woman forget her sucking child, that she should not have compassion on the daughter of her womb? Yea, they may forget, yet will I not forget thee. So she's speaking of Ephraim, the north kingdom. Israel went by the name Ephraim, which she identifies as the firstborn of her womb, which is then a daughter, we discover in our studies, not a son, as they like to write everything. That's Amina Bell doing that. And so the children have come to the birth, and there is not strength to bring forth. Where's is Mother God's firstborns? Where's the principles? Where are the chiefs? Where are the first fruits that's going to restore her covenant upon this earth? Where are they? You have to go in and you have to study to show yourself approved. And there are a divine selection that appears to do this in Romans 11. It's not male. What, has Israel not obtained that? What she seeketh for, he. It she seeketh for, and the word there is children. She's seeking for her children, birth, to have them restored back to the spirit of her covenant, not this religious lie and law that everybody builds a man up and is waiting for him to deliver the children. A man don't deliver children. Never did. Anyway, so that's the wrap up. The next part we'll do King Solomon and the house in the forest of Lebanon, and all of the information that I can pull together on that, and hopefully I will be done. So thanks for watching these two videos. I apologize for accidentally shutting my camera off. And I thank you for watching my video. I pray you're blessed with an abundance of truth. And I hope you all have a really nice day. Thanks.